Hey, Mark Vinciguerra, what's going on? Hey, listen, man, guys, gals, hi. Got my New Year's scruff going on. I had to give the grandbaby some, good rough beard scratches, man. I just kind of need that in my life. Anyway, listen, I want to talk a little bit about stretching your strings, keeping in tune and stuff. So check this out. This is, and Jared, if you're watching, this is not meant to torment you in any way. It's meant to teach. So we got a scratch. The strings are absolutely worn out, but whatever. They need to be changed. But so let's just say we got it in tune-ish, right? Let's just take the A string. That's in tune with the D. Now watch. I'm going to stretch it like I would a new string. I might break it, but, it'd be a fun video. Now, I already did that once, so that's the second time it went flat. Now stretch it again. More flat. So let me move to the E, because I didn't do this one yet. I just did the A just to prove a point. So I'm going to just do a gentle stretch. So these strings were never stretched, and if they were stretched, they weren't stretched properly. So they went their whole life they're really just at end of life for sure, but they're still not stretched to where they should have been the day they were new. Still flat. I say still flat. That was the second flat. So the point of this exercise is that when you put on new strings, the string itself does need to be stretched, because it's going to stretch a certain amount. Now, you don't want to get crazy. You can stretch it until the point where it breaks, obviously. And we're not trying to elongate the string. We're just trying to take out the flex that's going to make it go flat. So once you get to whatever that point is right there, and it doesn't go flat, that's it. You don't just keep tweaking on it and twanking on it. But you can get it to where it'll play in tune for a long time, even with a trim, even with a Bigsby. Oop, hear the tinky. So there's other lubrication needs that have to happen here. The intonation's out on this one, but basically you can get a good, stable playing, tuned instrument. We're getting away from the tremolo side because there's other mechanical things that you have to make sure they're in check. But a fixed bridge, can have tuning problems if you don't stretch the strings, or if you don't tie the strings correctly at the top, or if you have excessive windings. Like if you have barrel, and you go around it 22 times, you can stretch it just the way I just did, and it's probably going to keep pulling that tighter and tighter because you're pulling play out of it, especially if you go all cattywampus. Just winding it one over the other and not stacking the things in a row, stacking the winds up where they don't overlap each other. That's obviously the best way to do it. If you're going to wind your string around multiple times and not do the little locking, bend it over locking thing, probably wrap it around 3 or 4 times. If you're doing the locking thing, it needs to go around at least once, I think, to make sure you got a good lock on it. If you're doing that over and under thing, which is kind of a new thing for me, I do like it because the strings come off so easy in the end, but they do lock in. I like to go 3 or 4 times around when I do that. But for the one thing that I like to do, because I do a lot of basses, and basses seem to suffer from headstock angle. I like to run the string multiple rounds down because it gives you a better angle coming off the nut in all situations. Especially on Fenders. But when you have an angled headstock like that, it's not critical. It's not a big deal at all. Some headstocks are shallow. My old headstocks on all my guitars were 7 degrees, and that's pretty shallow. It's not as shallow as flat for Fender, but it's a non-string tree, the 7. But if you got tall bass tuners and a thin headstock, you can actually get a little bit of lost energy behind the nut. Anyway, I wasn't trying to make this a long video. I was really trying to, I wanted to show the owner, which I'll review all this with him, but B, just wanted to share the wealth, because a lot of people don't. I mean, I've seen some crazy, crazy stuff. The guy that taught me a lot about guitar way back in the day, who I highly admire, highly respect, he would put his strings on, put a bandana underneath all the strings, and basically do the chokehold on it. He would string it under here, or put the bandana under here, and then grab both sides of it and just bounce the guitar, joing, 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 and just stretch. It was violent. I don't subscribe to that. That's very not effective. I like to do it per string. That way, you know, the string is kind of asking you, boy, that's my OCD just kicked in. That's got to be level. Boy, that sucks. Anyway, sorry. But each string is going to have its own amount of stretch. It's going to have its own amount of stuff that's got to pull tight in the windings. The wound strings are going to definitely need more attention, in my opinion, than the non-wound strings. So I've done stringing videos in the past. Nobody watched them. I didn't dwell on that subject because I figure people don't want to hear about it. But I run a full-blown repair shop, and I'm telling you, man, tuning problems start right there. Lubrication at both ends. It's binding and stretching. So, and if you have a tremolo, you know, obviously the tremolo, if it's floating, it has to return to the same point. That's a whole nother thing. But if you, let's just say you have a tremolo that's one way, it's a Fender and it's bottomed out to the top of the guitar, so it's dive only. So it's always going to return to the same place. You still have bind points on that particular Fender trim. There's 3 of them coming out of you, going up through the block, right? It comes out of the block and hits the top plate. That's kind of a 1 or 2 depending on the scenario, and then you've got it coming over the saddle. So there's a lot going on at that end, and then you've got the nut, and then you've got however you wound them around the post. So if anything binds there, the actual nut material, the actual bridge itself, if it has burrs where it was filed, if it's not lubricated, all that happy stuff. So if you fix all of the binding issues, that means that when you're tuning, if you hear the tink, let me pull this. Oh, see, now the Bigsby's going to be great and there's no tinking. But if you hear a tink when you're tuning, that string is binding in the nut. And some people say, how's a smooth string with no windings bind in a plastic nut or a bone nut? The nut could be too tight, the nut could be dirty, the nut could be rough filed, just the nut could not have any relief in it. As far as a back pitch, it could have been filed flat. So the string is, there's some funny stuff that can happen there. That's a whole nother video though. But anyway, it's my 2 cents worth. Give me yours down below. See you, bye.